I've never forgotten that day at the airport. My dad, completely blind since birth, and I were waiting quietly for pre-boarding when this woman in a bright red blazer started yelling at him for cutting the line. She called him a liar, said he was faking his disability, and demanded security remove us. The entire gate area froze. I felt my face burn with rage and humiliation as strangers stared. But what happened next left her speechless and turned the whole flight into something unforgettable. It was Christmas week, one of the busiest travel days of the year. We were flying home to see family, and Dad had his white cane folded neatly on his lap, dark glasses on, the usual. I'd already shown the gate agent our boarding passes and explained we qualified for pre-boarding because of his disability. The agent had smiled, said, "No problem, we'll call you first," and we sat down near the podium to wait. Everything was calm until she appeared. Mid-50s, perfectly highlighted hair, designer carry-on, the kind of person who looks like she runs 3 neighborhood committees and wins every argument. She marched straight up to us the second the agent announced pre-boarding for passengers needing extra time. I stood to guide Dad toward the gate when she blocked our path. "Excuse me," she snapped, voice already loud enough for half the terminal to hear. "Pre-boarding is for people who actually need it. He doesn't look blind to me." My stomach dropped. Dad just tilted his head slightly, listening, but said nothing. He's used to ignorance, but this was next level. "Ma'am," I started, trying to stay calm, "my father is totally blind. We're allowed to pre-board." She ignored me completely and leaned toward Dad. "Sir, there are people here with real problems. My knee has been killing me all day, and I paid extra for priority boarding. You're taking advantage of the system." People started pulling out phones. A few muttered, "Oh my God," under their breath. I felt my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Then she went further. She reached out and snatched Dad's cane from his lap. Actually snatched it. Held it up like evidence in court. "See, he's not even using this properly. It's folded. He's faking it for special treatment." The gate area went dead silent. Dad stayed perfectly still, hands now empty on his knees, but I saw his jaw tighten. I stepped forward to take the cane back, but she jerked it away. "Security," she shouted toward the podium. "This man is lying about being disabled. He's trying to board early when he doesn't need to." I couldn't believe this was happening. My blind father, one of the kindest, most patient people on earth, being publicly accused and humiliated because someone decided his disability wasn't real enough for her standards. The gate agent, a young guy who'd been polite earlier, looked up sharply. He saw the cane in her hand, saw Dad sitting there defenseless, and something shifted in his expression. But she wasn't done. She turned to the growing crowd and announced, "I've seen this before. People fake disabilities to get perks. It's disgusting. My husband is a doctor. He'd know this man can see just fine." Dad finally spoke, voice quiet but clear. "Ma'am, I've been blind for 62 years. I don't need to prove it to you." That only made her louder. "Don't you dare talk back. You should be ashamed." I was shaking with anger, trying to figure out how to get his cane back without escalating things further, when the gate agent picked up the microphone. And that's when everything changed.
The gate agent's voice crackled over the microphone, calm but firm. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated for a moment. We have a situation here that needs to be addressed." Everyone's eyes locked on us, or rather on her, still clutching Dad's white cane like a trophy. She straightened up, smug, clearly thinking she'd won. "Finally," she huffed, "someone with authority." The agent stepped out from behind the podium, walked straight over, and held out his hand. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to return that cane immediately." She blinked, thrown off. "Excuse me? I'm exposing fraud here. This man—" "Now," he cut in, voice sharper. She hesitated, then shoved the cane at him like it was contaminated. He gently unfolded it, handed it back to Dad, and apologized under his breath. Dad just nodded, quiet as always. Then the agent turned to her. "Ma'am, what's your name and seat assignment?" She rattled it off proudly like she was about to get a medal. He typed something into the computer at the podium, scanned the screen, and nodded slowly. "All right," he announced into the mic again. "We're going to begin pre-boarding now. Passengers needing assistance, families with small children, and anyone with disabilities, please come forward." He looked directly at us, smiled, and said, "Sir, if you and your son would like to board first, we've arranged a special welcome for you." My jaw dropped. Special welcome? We stood up. I guided Dad down the jet bridge, but right before we entered the plane, 2 airline staff in vests were waiting with a wheelchair, even though Dad doesn't need one, and a flight attendant greeted us like royalty. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Thompson," she said warmly, using Dad's last name. "We've upgraded both of you to first class, compliments of the airline. Please follow me." I almost tripped. First class? We'd booked basic economy to save money for Christmas gifts. Behind us, I heard gasps from the gate area as people realized what was happening. As we settled into the huge leather seats, Dad running his fingers over the controls in quiet amazement, I glanced back toward the jet bridge. The Karen was being held at the podium by the agent and now a supervisor who'd just arrived. Her face was turning redder by the second. The agent's voice carried down the bridge. "Ma'am, we take accusations of disability fraud very seriously. We've reviewed the security footage from the terminal, and we've also confirmed Mr. Thompson's status with our accessibility team. You, however, physically interfered with a passenger's mobility aid. That's a federal offense." She started sputtering. I was just pointing out." "You grabbed his cane," the supervisor said coldly. "We have multiple witnesses and video. You're not boarding this flight." The entire first-class cabin went silent. Through the open door, we could hear her voice rising in panic. "You can't do this. I have priority boarding. My husband is a platinum member. I'll sue." The agent didn't flinch. "Ma'am, your ticket has been refunded. Security is on their way to escort you back to the terminal. You're welcome to rebook on another airline." She started yelling about calling corporate, about knowing the CEO, about how this was discrimination against real paying customers. A few passengers in economy, still waiting to board, actually started slow clapping. But then she did something that made my blood run cold. She lunged past the supervisor, trying to push her way onto the jet bridge, screaming, "That blind man stole my upgrade. This is theft." 2 airport police officers appeared almost instantly, took her by the arms, and started walking her back toward the terminal. She was kicking her designer carry-on, shouting the whole way, tears of rage streaming down her face now. The doors closed. The flight attendant brought Dad a warm towel and asked him if he wanted anything at all. He just smiled and said, "A glass of water would be lovely, thank you." As the plane pushed back, the captain came on the intercom. "Folks, quick update. Due to a passenger being removed for disruptive and unlawful behavior, we're running about 15 minutes behind schedule. We'll do everything we can to make up time in the air. Thank you for your patience." A ripple of applause went through the cabin. Someone behind us whispered, "Good riddance." I thought that was the end of it. Justice served, karma instant, story over. I was so wrong. Because about 30 minutes into the flight, after drink service, the flight attendant leaned over to me and whispered, "Your dad's doing okay?" "Yeah, he's great. Thank you again for everything." She smiled, then hesitated. "There's something you should know. That woman, she's not just some random entitled passenger." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "She's married to one of our regional vice presidents. That's why she thought she could get away with it. But corporate is already involved. They're furious." I stared at her. Wait, so all this, the upgrade, kicking her off, was because... No, the upgrade was because the crew voted on it the second we heard what happened. We do that sometimes when someone's treated badly. But removing her? That came straight from the top. Apparently, her husband has been warned before about her behavior on flights. This was the last straw. I looked over at Dad, peacefully listening to the in-flight music through the headphones they'd given him, completely unaware of the full storm he'd just triggered. But the real bombshell was still coming, one I never saw coming, and it would change everything I thought I knew about that day.
The flight attendant's words hung in the air. Married to a regional vice president? I thought the drama had peaked when they dragged her off the plane,
But apparently, the rabbit hole went deeper. Dad removed his headphones. "Everything all right, son?"
Yeah.
I lied. "Just chatting." He smiled, trusting as ever, and went back to his music. I, on the other hand, couldn't stop staring out the window at the clouds, replaying every second of her meltdown. Why had she gone nuclear over pre-boarding, of all things? About an hour before landing, the same flight attendant returned, this time with an envelope. She handed it to me discreetly. "From the captain. He asked me to wait until we were closer to home before giving this to you." I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note on airline letterhead and a printout. The note read, "Mr. Thompson and Son, what happened today should never happen to any passenger. We are deeply sorry for the distress caused. Enclosed is confirmation of lifetime global services status for both of you, our highest tier, as well as a personal apology from our Chief Operating Officer. We reviewed today's incident thoroughly. The passenger in question has been permanently banned from all flights on our airline and our partners. Her husband has resigned his executive position effective immediately. Thank you for your patience and grace. Safe travels home for the holidays. Captain Ramirez." I read it twice. Lifetime top-tier status? The kind celebrities and CEOs have? And the husband resigned? I showed the letter to Dad, read it aloud. He just chuckled softly. "People do strange things when they're scared, son." "Scared?" I asked. "She didn't look scared, she looked furious." He tilted his head. "Exactly." That's when the flight attendant sat down across the aisle, off duty for a moment, and lowered her voice. There's more to the story. Crew gossip travels fast, especially when corporate's involved. She glanced around, then continued. "That woman, her name's Victoria Lang, has been pulling stunts like this for years, using her husband's position to bully staff, demand upgrades, throw tantrums. Flight attendants have a group chat where they warn each other about her. They call her Red Blazer because she always wears the same outfit when she's planning to cause trouble." I leaned in. So today wasn't random? Not even close. See, her husband was already under investigation. Multiple complaints from employees about how she'd show up at airports, flash his business card, and intimidate gate agents into giving her whatever she wanted. The airline was building a case to fire him quietly after the holidays. Then came the real twist. "Today," she whispered, "she thought your dad was part of a test." "A test?" I asked. Corporate had started sending secret shoppers, people with visible disabilities, to see if staff were following accessibility rules properly. Victoria was convinced your dad was an actor hired to trap her into a confrontation so they'd have video evidence against her husband. That's why she snatched the cane. She wanted to prove he was faking it on camera. My mouth dried. We were plants? Paranoid as hell. She'd been tipped off that auditors were watching flights that week. When she saw pre-boarding and your dad with the cane, she panicked, thought if she exposed the fake, she'd save her husband's job. Instead, she handed corporate the exact evidence they needed, on a silver platter in front of 50 witnesses and security cameras. I sat back stunned. All that rage, the accusations, the humiliation she tried to inflict on my blind father, it wasn't even about us. It was her desperately trying to protect her own privilege, and she self-destructed in a spectacular fashion. The attendant smiled. "Karma doesn't always wear a red blazer, but sometimes it does." We landed to a surprise at the gate, a small group of airline ground staff waiting with a sign that read, "Welcome home, Mr. Thompson." They helped us with bags, escorted us through the terminal like VIPs, and even arranged a complimentary ride to our house. Dad squeezed my arm as we walked. "You know, I've faced ignorance my whole life. People doubting, staring, talking loud like I'm deaf too. But today felt different, like the world pushed back for once.